altricial, meaning that they need round-the-clock care from their parents. When they're first hatched, they can't even really hold their heads up. It takes them a few days to be able to hold their head up properly to be able to eat. Males and females both stick around. They both help out with parental care. They will both be hunting. They'll both bring food back to the nest. The chicks grow incredibly quickly. They gain about a pound every 4 to 5 days. And they reach their parent size in about 6 weeks. That's all it takes. So imagine 1 or 2 bald eagle chicks that are the same size as their parents, and the parents are also in the nest. That lasts a few months. They fledge at 10 to 13 weeks. That's when they'll take their first flight. But they generally stay in the nest for another 4 to 5 weeks after that. And during that time, they're still being fed by their parents. And at the very end, learning how to hunt from their parents. But there will be 4-ish full-size bald eagles living in the nest for anywhere from 2 to 3 months. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Emily now.
All right, so the habitat of the bald eagles, we're going to go over range. So the historic range and the current range is pretty much the same. It is all throughout North America, from Canada and Alaska all the way down to northern Mexico. They are particularly abundant around waterways. Like I said, the current range is much of the historic range. Bald eagles are a success story, so we're going to see a lot of how they came back. Now, preferred habitat, they like forested areas adjacent to large bodies of water, including rivers and lakes and coastal areas to an altitude of 6,500 feet. And in the winter, they may be found in waterless open country. So it doesn't have to be around water during the winter, but during the breeding season, they're always by water somewhere. If you notice the bottom corner picture, that's actually bald eagle perched on a rock. In the absence of trees, they do perch and build nests on rocky areas, but they prefer the forested areas. A breeding pair will keep a territory. They defend a very small portion of it, about 150 acres. But their territory can be up to 5,000 acres. They're going to push out other birds in the area, other bald eagles, and even other raptors as well. During the winter, migrant eagles don't defend a territory, and they live in those loose communities. U.S. history. 1782, bald eagles became the national symbol, and their decline basically kind of happened right away, first due to hunting. In 1940, the Bald Eagle Protection Act prohibited the selling, hunting, and possessing of bald eagles or parts of bald eagles. During that time, DDT began to be used widespread, and that continued to decline until in 1963, there was only 417 nesting pairs left. If you want to know what that looks like in California, we'll get there. In 1967, bald eagles were added to the federal list of endangered species. In 72, DDT was banned, and that was kind of the turning point there. 72 is somewhere right around here, and you can see the numbers going up. In 1978, they were added to the Endangered Species Act as endangered. That's the federal one. In 1995, they were downlisted. In 95, there was between 4,000 and 5,000 nesting pairs. And then in 2007, when there was 9,789 nesting pairs, they were removed completely from the Endangered Species Act. Just to give you an idea, when in 1782 they became the national symbol, there was estimated to be between 75,000 and 100,000 nesting individuals. That's not pairs, that's nesting individuals. So as many as 50,000 nesting pairs in 1782, all the way down to 417 in 1962. All right, California history. In 1850, California became a state. That was 68 years after the bald eagle became the U.S. symbol. And in 1915, that was when the last known bald eagle nest was in the San Francisco Bay Area, outside of La Honda. By the mid-1950s, bald eagles were gone from the Channel Islands. And there was a record from early 20th century to indicate there being historically 24 nesting pairs of bald eagles over the Channel Islands. And so by the 1950s, they had all gone. And in 1967, only 30 nesting pairs were left in California, all in that upper third of the state, right up there. In 1971, bald eagles were added to the California Endangered Species List, and beginning in 1980 and going to 2007 when they were delisted from the federal list, there are various conservation societies, including the Ventana one, which is our partner for bald eagles, as well as the condors. During that time, we saw in 1996 the first breeding pair back in the Bay Area, and that was at Lake Dalval in Alameda County, and that's in Livermore. In 2007, when the bald eagles were moved from the federal endangered species list, they remained on the Californias, where they still are today. As of 2017, there are 371 known nesting territories in all of California. Known nesting territories, there could be more in more remote areas, we don't know for sure. And then also, they may not be used every single year, so some of those could be empty. There's showing you some of the areas. You see that there's still a really heavy population in the upper third of the state. Yes.
There are two nesting pair in San Pablo Reservoir.
Two nesting pairs in San Pablo Reservoir. There's several in the Bay Area. I had to do some local research. It was pretty awesome. All right, conservation issues. Hunting is actually big for two reasons, because until 1940, bald eagles were hunted. And then in 1940, that was when the U.S. passed the Bald Eagle Protection Act, which prohibited the killing, possessing, or selling of bald eagles or parts of bald eagles. And then later, golden eagles were added to it. However, even though they're protected from hunting, they still face pressures from hunting. Just like the condors could get lead poisoning, also the bald eagles can, because they are carrion eaters. So the hunters might use lead, hunt their food, gut it right there, leave the guts, and take everything else, leaving possible lead fragments, which could be ingested. When it gets into the food chain, it becomes more concentrated the higher you go up the food chain. And so bald eagles can accumulate lots of lead. The picture up at the top there, that is a bald eagle that had lead poisoning. The guy there and his friends saw acting very strangely, like on the ground, not moving, not responding to a lot of people in the area, whereas bald eagles are known to want to be away from human disturbance. He eventually approached it, which you should not do if you ever see something like this. But as you can see from this picture, that bald eagle is very sick. It ended up going to rehab for lead poisoning. All right, birds with lead poisoning are weakened, have decreased food intake, drooping wings, cannot fly, have watery green diarrhea. The tip of the tail up there is greenish, it's hard to see on the screen. And they don't behave normally, they don't move away from disturbance. In 2013, California placed a ban on lead ammunition to phase in by 2019. Where we stand in that is it goes in 3 phases, and we've done phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 3 is everything is lead free. Now, this may or may not be contested. There was Obama banned lead ammunition on federal lands, but that was reversed when Trump came in office, and so we don't know yet if in California lead will be used in federal land or not. A lot of people who live and work in those areas are like, I don't think so. They feel confident, and so I hope to feel confident with them as well. The ban is considered controversial though because the alternative bullets are costly. DDT, or dichloryl diphenyl trichloroethane.
Very good.
Was used as an insecticide. Started being used widespread in the 1940s. It was used to control mosquitoes and other insects. When it goes into the food chain, it magnifies as it goes up, and what it does with birds is it interferes with their ability to produce strong eggshells. Like you heard earlier, the eggshells are thin and then they get crushed by the weight of the bird. DDT is cited as the reason why bald eagles disappeared from the Channel Islands in the 1950s. And one of the big pushes to get it banned was actually Rachel Carson's, that's the pictures over there, Silent Spring, published in 1962, warning about the dangers of DDT. Aside from damage done to birds, other wildlife can be negatively affected, and it can be linked to cancer. 10 years after that, in 1972, DDT was banned, and that was a big turning point in bald eagle conservation. Now, as they said earlier in the condor presentation, it is still in the environment in some areas and can definitely get into the food chain still. And because bald eagles are also carrion eaters, they can still be affected by DDT in the areas where it's still in the environment. Habitat loss and disturbance is one of the biggest threats today. Bald eagles prefer quiet areas around open water to nest, but humans prefer this for recreation, and that creates conflict between us and bald eagles. In the presence of humans, bald eagles may decrease foraging by up to 35% or even abandon their nest. The other thing is that prime bald eagle nesting areas are either too close to humans or lost due to development-related destruction of good nesting, perching, foraging, and roosting sites. And even wintering populations are affected by that, even if they're not around water. And electrocution. These poles are very attractive for birds, as you can see. At the top, that one's actually a golden eagle, but I wanted to use it to illustrate the point. The bird touches two active parts at the same time. That's how they get electrocuted. They can also collide with the lines like the condors do for inexperienced birds or during bad weather. Things that can be done to help that, though, are putting the lines really far apart so that their wings don't touch it, putting a bar above the area so that they perch on that instead, or just deterrence. You see those for pigeons in cities. Their ecological importance. They depend upon a lot of things in their environment. Old growth forests with trees. They like tall, dead trees where they can kind of look out over the environment. They rely on rivers and lakes. In fact, they forage better in slow-moving rivers. Salmon, their #1 food, and then wolves or any other animal that might leave a carcass behind, therefore creating easy access to food for bald eagles. They also depend on what they eat, of course, salmon, other fish, birds, and small mammals. And they can affect their prey populations by kind of suppressing numbers so they don't get too crazy. They might make other birds give up their food or even move their nesting area. If a bald eagle moves in and there's an osprey nest nearby, next year the osprey might be in a different location because of that. What are we doing? I'm going to have Caitlin go over this.
All right, we're almost done, and I'm going to finish us off. So I heard somebody was already asking about the bald eagles that we are getting. There's not been a lot of info put out on this yet, so breaking news right here, straight from Jenny Green. We have one male and female pair that will be coming to us from the Dallas Zoo. They're there right now. The male is currently known as Anchorage. He's approximately 15 years old. These are both rehab birds, so we don't know their exact ages. They were adults when they were brought into rehab. So these are best guesses. 15 years old, he was found in Alaska, hence the name Anchorage, with a fractured femur. Sounds painful to me. He spent time at wildlife centers in both Virginia and Vermont and was eventually placed at the Dallas Zoo when he was deemed non-releasable. His mate, female, is named Alabama because she was found in Alabama. Her fracture was a wing, and she was treated at the Southeastern Reference Center in Georgia and then placed at the Dallas Zoo. She is approximately 8 years old. So they were both deemed non-releasable, but even with Alabama's fractured wing, they are considered fully flighted, so they will be able to move around the enclosure. We have a second pair. Not as many details on this yet, but there is planned to be a second, also male-female pair that are coming from Raptor Education Group. We have a facility located in Wisconsin. I don't have any further details about these birds yet. We are waiting for more details from them, confirmation of how they will travel, that kind of thing. So if we get more details before we send these slides out to you guys, we will add them. It will be a second male-female pair. Also rehab birds, also non-releasable, but also flighted. They are two pairs, but there will not be any breeding that will happen at Oakland Zoo. It will not be participating in the breeding program. The first pair is planned to arrive in late April. That's the Dallas Zoo pair. The second pair is still to be determined. More communication needs to happen with Raptor Education Group first. All right, conservation partners. So Emily mentioned Ventana Wildlife Society. They're super active in condors right now. They used to be super active in bald eagles, and they still do a lot of monitoring. So they're located in Big Sur, founded in 1977. Their mission is to conserve native wildlife and their habitats. So they were a big part of the bald eagle recovery program. Between 86 and 2000 are the dates. The goal of which was to establish a self-sustaining population of bald eagles in Central California. They defined a self-sustaining population by one that would consist of at least 4 breeding pairs. Most of their work was relocation of eaglets from Alaska and Canada. Those populations were never considered endangered. It was only the lower 48 that they had big problems. So eaglets were brought here, released as adults, obviously. The eaglets themselves can't fly yet, so that wouldn't help very much. But they released a total of 70 first-year eagles. And in 1993, that marked the first successful nest by a Ventana eagle that was released through their program. And in 1996, one of their eagles is nested at the nest that Emily mentioned at DeVal in Livermore. So that is part of the Ventana program, that eagle is there now. Today, they still do a lot of monitoring and reporting on nesting pairs. As of June 2017, there are at least 30 nesting pairs right here in Central California. And again, 370 total in California. What you can do. Keep the environment clean. Bald eagles, just like condors, can be victims of microtrash. Please don't leave microtrash around. I know I'm preaching to the choir. That is a problem with bald eagles. Help protect their habitat. Keep distance from their nests. If you know where they nest, be a respectful bird watcher. Don't go out on a boat in the middle of the lake to watch the birds. They're not going to like that. You can help with the ongoing monitoring. Use apps like eBird and iNaturalist to report your sightings. If you see a sick or injured bird, like Emily mentioned with the lead poisoning, contact a rehab center to help. In our immediate vicinity, the Big Two are Lindsay Wildlife and Silver Creek Nature Center. Lead shot. You can be an advocate to help continue and expand the outline of lead shot. Sign petitions, contact your representatives. If the utility power poles one really moved you, you can reach out to utility companies to try and encourage them in particularly sensitive areas to make those make them safer, there we go, for our birds. And check out the American Eagle Foundation for tons more ideas.
I just wanted to point out the keep a distance from nests. There's a nesting pair in Milpitas by an elementary school, and someone got fined $20,000 for flying a drone up next to the nest. Oh. Yay!
I think that's our last slide. We're going to leave you with while we take a few questions, we're going to leave you with a nest cam. This is on Santa Cruz Island. It's called the Sauces Canyon Nest. They currently have 3 eggs, which is pretty good. I don't know if this is the male or female. If people watch them a lot, they can tell. But both the male and female currently nesting here were released from the San Francisco Zoo as part of their breeding program. 2005 and 2006, respectively, the male and the female were released, and they're now a breeding pair here on the Santa Cruz Islands. All right, we'll take a few questions before we turn it over to grizzly bears. Yes.
Hi, I was wondering that they have, the nest and they come back to the nest. Well, why isn't somebody else saying, oh, look, there's one already built, we'll take that?
It happens. Bald eagles are very territorial, so if they are coming back to use their nest and there's someone else there, they will run them off. However, this particular nest has had 3 nesting pairs in it since it's been built.
Oh.
So they will make use of a nest that was already there.
2 comments and a question.
Sure.
The first is that lead fishing weights are also a problem. And I don't know the details, but I do know that California has moved or is moving to ban those because, of course, the eagles eat the fish. The second is that DDT is not banned in other countries. And unfortunately, it builds up in the food chain and can still affect wildlife here. The question is, if the zoo is not going to be involved in breeding, are we going to be removing eggs when laid from these pairs?
We asked that same question. That is not an answer that we have yet from the zookeepers. But yeah, I don't know if it's that they're not expected to breed or if they will be pulling eggs. We can find out. We can ask Jenny. The first 2 comments, if you didn't hear, he was mentioning lead fishing weights, which is a great point since these guys eat so much fish. And DDT is still legal in other countries, so it sometimes makes its way over here.
And states. Hawaii has
Other
it.
state, Hawaii allows DDT?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I didn't either.
Yes, LG.
You used the term